Okay, so just another video now talking about prayer. I would ask anybody who has any questions about it at all, prayer for others, to give me a call or text me or something, and let's discuss it. Because there's some things we want to avoid. Being such a diverse community with so many different backgrounds, we just want to make sure that nobody is practicing any kind of sorcery on accident when they sign up to pray for someone for an hour. And so I thought I'd just do a little better video. It should be still really short, 10 or 15 minutes, but I thought I would just do another video right now, just explaining what it means to pray for somebody. And and from a Christian standpoint. So the foundation of Christian prayer is we want God's will to be done and not our own. And and it's subtle because you see in scriptures, you see Jesus curing people all the time and working miracles all the time. But if you pay attention, he didn't cure everyone, first of all. In fact, that wasn't even the point of his ministry, to cure everyone. And you also know that he didn't always work miracles when he could have. In fact, sometimes the devil even tempted Jesus to work miracles to get him to sin. The three temptations when in the desert with the devil, where the devil took him to a very high place and challenged him to make bread for food when he was fasting, or to be what I've read as described as reckless. Basically, look, you could throw yourself off this cliff because God's to protect you, and that's an extreme thing. No one here probably would throw themselves off of a cliff because they believed they could fly or that God could protect them. Most people wouldn't think that way. But there are all kinds of ways in which people are reckless in life in a way that is foolish and expecting God to protect them. And just one of my neighbors even was telling me they'll never wear a mask because God protects them from the virus. And I mean, that's okay. He can make that choice. I don't mean to pick on that decision. He doesn't have to wear a mask if he doesn't want to wear one. I mean, I guess he does in public, but he can get the virus if he wants. And if he wants to take that risk, he should take it. But it is also true, though, that God isn't going to protect you from getting the flu or COVID or some sickness, and at the same time you're being reckless about it and not practicing just basic common sense. And that's the danger with miracles and spirituality and spiritual power. We're always tempted to take spirituality and turn it into magic. And magic is an unrealistic, untrue orientation towards life, and often self-serving, just because we're so self-serving all the time anyway. So it often works in our favor. I can do this anyway because the rules don't apply to me because I have magic. Or I can not work hard and still have tons of money come my way through visualizations because of magic. Or I can make that person give me a job. I can visualize them hiring me and plant this idea in their head. I can implant it through magic and get them to do my will. There's always this temptation to try to manipulate the world and other people through spiritual means. And in the alternative healing fields, a lot of modalities border on that, in my opinion, to a large extent. In magic, in an unrealistic attempt to manipulate life into being a way that it isn't. And so we're trying to avoid that. And so that's what it isn't, right? Certainly nobody should sign up to pray for a person who isn't deeply on this path and who hasn't seen the wisdom of letting go of those other things, because we really want this to be Christian and in alignment with Christian principles. So there may even be some training necessary. That might be the neatest thing to do. Just as soon as the virus is over, we should just do a class on praying for others. a seminar, right? 3 hours together, where the kind of energy work that I do, we call it energy work because I'm a massage therapist, but it isn't that. I remember just being in massage therapy school, and my hands got really hot when I was meditating. So my meditation teacher said maybe I had a gift of healing. Then I started sticking my hands on people, and it turned out there was a bit of a thing there. Something was happening. It kind of worked. So then he said, you ought to go to massage therapy school. You need a license to touch people. I'm not sure that's true, but I thought it was true then. And so I went to massage therapy school, believing that how to heal people. I was going to learn how to heal people, and there is that there. It's such a good field. I don't mean to knock it, but I just know my experience with it was one of profound disappointment. I thought the first class would be talking about God's power, even if they didn't say God, and this infinite power and the ways to get closer to it, and the ways to improve our accuracy within that power, all the things I was really looking for. I thought that was going to be what it was about, and it turned out not to be that at all, and it was really all these techniques. And I remember just in massage school, I remember just turning off and saying, I just don't believe in any of this. I don't believe in any of this. I don't mean that none of it is good. I certainly don't mean that. There's a spectrum there, and some of it's really good, and I don't mean to knock any of it. I'm not making a statement about that. I hope I'm not. But I thought I wanted it to be about God. And so when I would work on people, what I would, in my heart, what I would intuit is they would say, don't do that. Don't do those techniques. Just do, just what would God do through you if you just got out of the way completely and let it? And this was Christian spirituality, but I didn't know it at the time. This was years before I found Christian spirituality. And so I would do that kind of thing. I remember a woman came in for, this was after I graduated. A woman came in for a craniosacral session, and she said, I really want craniosacral. And I said, well, I don't do it. I won't do that. I'm really not into that, but I'll work on your head. And I worked on her head, and this was just a learning thing for me. But she got up from the session and she said, that was really, really good craniosacral work. I thought you didn't do cranial work. And I had not done cranial work. But her paradigm required the healing to manifest in that way, and so it did. So she felt whatever, I know a little bit about it. She felt, the releases and the still points and all those kind of things. But that's not what I was doing at all, and it wouldn't have unfolded that way for her had she not needed it to. But she needed that, and that's the way it unfolded. So I just took a different road, and it was a road no one thought was useful, and people thought was dumb, and then it has all kinds of problems, which is, the whole paradigm is off. People come in for specific results. They want this thing worked on, and God's looking at them and saying, well, I understand that needs fixed, but you have all these other problems we need to fix. Could we start here? And so it took forever to figure out that it just wasn't a part of that paradigm. And so what we're doing is not a part of that paradigm. And part of why I say that is because many people from the center went through massage school or other modality healings. That's not what we're doing. And don't do that. Don't do that. Try, actually believing in God. So what you do is you can ask, though, can't you? Jesus clearly said we can ask. It seems we learned from him that we should ultimately just be praying for God's will to be done because God already knows what is needed. And God's already trying to give it to everyone, but it doesn't get allowed in. And so part of what we do when we pray for someone is we allow power into that person's life on behalf of them. It's a kind of advocacy. So that person is spiritually sick in a way that such that they cannot receive that much power. God is bringing them to that place and healing them, but God is working within their limitations and within the problems of their will, and somehow our energy work, it's advocacy for that person. For a moment, they get to borrow our faith and our depth, and also the greater thing that comes through that, obviously, because it seems more can come through me than I really have. I'm certainly not saying I have everything that comes through or that you do. It more power can come through because of this. And there's just this mystery there. And Christianity says it's the mystery of advocacy, right? It's the mystery of the fact that God can come into the world without us, but chooses not to. And so that we're supposed to be there for one another and pray for one another and help one another. And more power will come through when we do. And so when you do these sessions, these prayer sessions, take your time and get into a sacred place and let go of your, I don't really experience this now, but I remember. So, your head will say, well, they know I'm doing it on Tuesday, so maybe she'll get well on Tuesday. Just put that away, right? In fact, if your mind says that, say, God, please, if this person gets cured through me, let it come through on Wednesday or Thursday, not on the day where I would get credit. Say that as an antidote to that kind of egoism. And any kind of thing where I'm going to do it and it's going to be good. Don't pollute. It's okay if those thoughts arise. Don't feel like you're poison. But in your will, don't accept that. Don't think that way. Just go in there without all of that and just say, God, just your will be done. And you can ask for a person to get well. I never really do ask that. You can, though. I think it's okay in Christianity to ask that. But then you have to say afterwards, but not my will, your will be done. Because we don't know the whole unfolding of that person's plan in life. We don't know all the factors that are involved. We don't know what all the best way for that situation to unfold. We do not know. We're not wise enough to know. And so even if you want to ask for specific outcomes, you can. And that's okay. I don't think that's wrong. It's okay to do that. But you must always say and mean afterwards, but your will be done because I don't know what is best. Your will be done, not mine. And then you come in it that way. And I don't even ask really for, but it's okay if you do. I don't really ask for anything to happen. I work instead on praying that I would be as open as possible for healing to come through. And when I say healing, I mean God's will to come through. So, because I do know that the more open a person is, the more power that comes through them. So I put my prayers and intentions more on that place of, let me be genuinely open to this. Let me believe, first of all. Let me actually believe that a miracle could take place and that a change could take place in their life. Let me believe that. That's where I think that prayer is best suited, at least before the session. And then during the session, I find it very helpful to really put the focus on that person, really think about them, and start to just genuinely want good for them. I don't mean a specific good, that's not ever my intent, but the good, right? The healing, the truth, the light, the depth, the things that are true. That's what I am holding that person in advocacy for. And in whatever way they need to receive that, it is not my business. And it can be in secret, as we know that a lot of times the changes come in secret. So I don't get nervous now if they don't feel much. I don't care. I've learned better than that. Now, someone may not come back if they don't feel much, and that's okay. They might not be in a place where they can see the value of the work. But it doesn't matter. I know that the work has value, and I don't need to see where it's landing in order to know that, because there's enough experience now that you just see it changing people's lives. It just does. And it doesn't matter in specifically what way. Okay, so that's the foundation. God's will, not yours. God's will, not even the person on the table. but certainly you can ask. But you have to mean it when you say, but not my will be done, your will be done. That's when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane and he said, if it's possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. So it's okay to ask, but then qualified by God's will be done, not mine. And then what you want to do after that, and I'll tell you what I do, but you don't have to do this. It sometimes I can just go into a deep state and hold that person in my consciousness. So it's kind of like if you went all the way through the tunnel and you're in that deeper place and you're conscious and you're in that deeper place and you're holding that person in your attention in God's energy. So you're in there with God and you're holding that person in there with you. Sometimes I'll do it that way. But the thing is, I'm so used to the energy coming through my hands, it doesn't need to. That's not the only way it works. If that isn't intuitive for you, you don't have to do it. But for me, my hands get warm and I feel it all pour through my hands. So what I like to do is have a pillow on my lap and I just pretend that pillow is the person that I'm praying for. So then it's as if I'm touching them. And then I close my eyes and I do it just like I would do a session if someone came in person, and I just hold that person in my attention, and the energy starts to flow through and I can feel it moving in and changing and just doing what it always does whenever I do a session like that. And that tends to be it seems to be the most satisfying way for me to do it, where it feels like I've made a real connection with that person. And I would occasionally say their name throughout the session. Um, just so my will and mind aren't drifting off into other things of my own life or someone else's life or God itself only. So to keep that connection, I might say their name occasionally in my mind, like a slow mantra, or maybe even just every couple of minutes. So that's really it. The main thing is you just need to be careful that you don't cross a line into sorcery where you could be working against what this person needs, right? Like they're going a certain way and you're trying super hard to make it go a different way. That isn't being in Christ, That when Jesus said, if you ask something in my name, it shall be done for you. The shallow person says, I ask all the time and it doesn't happen. The deep people say, well, you weren't in his name when you asked. And well, what does that mean, says the shallow person. And then the desert fathers say, well, you didn't ask for what God wanted because you're not even close enough to know. And so it's like, yes, we have this power, but it's this power we join. It's not a power that joins us. It's a power we join. And that gets into just instantly, I just see an explosion in my mind of everything we build in this world. Just running so contrary to God's will. Just everything. And even when we get on something kind of good, the arrogance that builds up around it because we found something good is profound. And now we've got stars in our bellies and they don't. And it's, the Sneetches, the star-bellied Sneetches from Dr. Seuss. I mean, it is profound how we warp and twist everything. So think of it that way when you're doing energy work, when you're doing, this is prayer, but it's our kind of Christian energy work. No technique, no manipulation of energy. You're entering a flow that is coming through you into that person. You're advocating on their behalf. You're praying on their behalf. You're being used, right? Mediated. God is mediating healing through you because God wants to, not because God has to. And if you can keep that intent, then you're so invited to be a part of the prayer community. But if you have other intents in mind, and I'm just really mostly speaking to new people, certainly nobody who's been on the path a while has any of this going on. But if you have other intents in mind, it would be better not to volunteer for our prayer groups because we really want to keep this completely in alignment with Christian principles. And so then, once you're in the period of prayer, to the best of your ability, you hold an intensity of focus in God on that person. And that can wax and wane, it can go up and down. And there's I've noticed personally, there's different qualities that come through that sometimes give me an idea of what's happening, but there also oftentimes are not. And none of that matters, but it does matter that you yourself enter a genuine state of meditation, some degree of it, doesn't matter how deep or shallow, where you really are with God and holding that person in your consciousness and praying for them. And that you do for 45 minutes or an hour. And I think if you were Peter or Paul, you wouldn't need to do 45 minutes or an hour necessarily. Maybe just be really quick. But having been through a period where a ton of power was coming through years ago, and then having it slow, I just have learned through that faith, knowing it works. And I thought one day, it's not as powerful as it once was, but I wonder if more time spent doing it would produce the same results. And the best example has been my daughter. I've definitely seen real, sort of really kind of miracle stuff. I mean, it's no doubt that her, some diagnoses that she had were completely changed by energy work. There's just no doubt about that. But it took consistency, right? And that's why we spend an hour straight. We spend the time to let that power flow through us into that person. And okay, I hope that makes things clear. I hope that's a little. The other video was a rushed video. I was in a hurry to get it out to people. So I hope that helps. And I think that would be a fun one. Like, let's decide right now that the minute we are able to meet in person, let's do a Saturday. Let's do a Saturday seminar, 3 hours, 4 hours, where we meet together and do this energy work on one another and discuss it, and it's sort of passed on a little bit in a more formal way, because it's really something. And that's our strength. We're contemplative, so certainly we can devote an hour of the time in prayer we spend a day towards someone else. Certainly we could do that so easily. Okay, thanks everyone so much. I kept my word. It's a short video. I'm trying to shorten them because I talk too long. And okay, so thanks everyone so much, and I'll see you soon.